Hello everybody, David Schuster here. Canadian leaders are now calling Donald Trump's bluff on a trade war, and Trump appears to be backing down. A few days ago, Ontario Premier Doug Ford repeatedly vowed to cut off energy supplies to the United States in retaliation to Donald Trump's proposed tariffs.
You come and attack Ontario, you attack livelihoods of people of Ontario and Canadians. We're going to use every tool in our toolbox to defend Ontarians and Canadians across the border.
Trump responded to Ford's threat by saying this to CNBC.
Well, that's okay if he does that, that's fine, but the United States is subsidizing Canada. It's truly a subsidy, and we shouldn't have to do that.
Earlier, when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau flew to Mar-a-Lago to personally lobby Trump against the tariffs, Trump dismissed Trudeau by saying Canada should be the 51st state and Trudeau should be the governor. However, the premier of the Canadian province of Quebec, François Legault, met recently with Trump in France. Instead of insults, Trump delivered the bottom line.
And he told me very clearly that we can avoid those tariffs if we do what needs to be done with the borders.
And that means Canada needs to spend a little more on border police, K-9 teams, and surveillance drones to stop illegal cross-border activity. So the western Canadian province of Alberta has announced it is adding 50 staff to bolster its border with Montana. The Trump transition team has reacted favorably, prompting an optimistic view from Alberta's premier.
If we succeed and maintain proper border security, I expect we will have a very strong relationship with the United States, as we always have.
In other words, each of the Canadian provincial leaders simply needs to add some border security to the existing Canadian patrols. Experts say the U.S.-Canadian border is already secure, so it won't be a reach for Canada to point to a few extra agents to claim success. Donald Trump, in turn, can then say he got Canada to take action. And even though the action will be relatively small, Trump will be able to claim victory and escape before he actually imposes tariffs that would drive up prices to U.S. consumers and prompts Canadian actions that would hurt America even more.
We're going to need the energy. Who has the energy? Ontario has the energy. We're nuclear energy leaders in the world. We're building small modular reactors, leading the world. And who would we love to give our energy to, which we do now, by the way, is the U.S. We ship energy down to Michigan, over to New York, so does Quebec, but Alberta ships 4.3 million barrels a day. You start tariffing that, and the American public's going to see an increase in gas by $1 a gallon. So we're there to strengthen our relationship, not hurt our relationship. I always say that 9 million Americans wake up every morning to produce products that are shipped up to Ontario. We're the number one trading partner, number one export destination to 17 states, number 2 to 11 other states.
Donald Trump himself has reportedly been told by advisors that a tariff war with Canada would significantly hurt the U.S. and Canadian economies. And to underscore that Canada is prepared to escalate and turn the damage into something catastrophic in the United States, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is now outlining the specific Canadian retaliatory steps.
Earlier this week, in fact, we heard Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau address a business group there in Halifax and warning that retaliatory tariffs, the initial response to any imposed by the U.S., would be immediately on the table. And now we're getting a sense that they would go a few steps further, and that includes export controls and taxes on exports. And this would hit key products coming into the U.S. We're talking about oil, we're talking about uranium, we're talking about potash. These are all real critical inputs. The U.S. imports 4 million barrels of oil per day from Canada, and that would have an immediate effect, especially in the Midwest, in mountain states where a lot of that fuel is refined and sold. Likewise with potash, it's a key input for fertilizer used by farmers across the country, so that would have a big effect.
Meanwhile, Canadian citizens are already preparing for the trade war. Trump's insults of Canada and Prime Minister Trudeau have gotten a lot of Canadian media attention. And between Trump's condescension of Canada and his tariff threats, Canadian citizens are lashing out. A majority of Canadians are now telling pollsters they are prepared to start boycotting American-made goods and services.
The majority of Canadians say they're much less likely to buy American products as a result of these tariffs, about 51%, and an additional 14 say they're at least somewhat less likely to buy American products. So while these tariffs we know will have an impact on the Canadian economy and certainly on the American economy, there could be a knock-on carryover effect in consumer behavior changes that adds another little wrinkle that the Trump administration will have to consider before the imposition of these tariffs.
Another major wrinkle will come in the automotive industry. 50% of all auto ports come through Canada. Plus, some vehicle components will cross the US-Canadian border several times as various inputs are added in the manufacturing process. A trade war could cause huge log jams in the automotive industry supply chain.
We're a big auto province here, and 50% of the parts are produced either at an assembly plant here in Ontario or even in Michigan. They're coming from the U.S. And, you know, it's just going to hurt the supply chain. It's been around, the auto pack, since 1960s. And it can go back and cross the border 8 times before it gets assembled in a plant in the U.S. or in Ontario. We're just so much stronger together.
Trump transition officials agree and say they expect the United States, Canada, and Mexico to reach a deal. And again, by Trump's own admission, the bar for reaching a deal is low in terms of substance, even if the PR claims by Trump are massive. And already, Donald Trump seems to have achieved what he wanted from Canada and Mexico. Their leaders and lawmakers are spending a lot of time thinking about him.
He has gotten both those countries' attention. In fact, the new Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, has also tried to make some steps of her own. She has reached out also to Donald Trump, just as Justin Trudeau has. You'll remember Trudeau even flew to Mar-a-Lago for a one-on-one dinner, a dinner with Donald Trump, and spent some time with him also on the phone. She has also called Trump and tried to take some steps that she can follow through on when it comes to the border and drug enforcement there.
The irony, of course, is that border crossings along the U.S.-Mexico border for several months have been lower than at the end of the last Trump administration. But that sets up another opportunity for Donald Trump. Even if Mexico does virtually nothing concrete to stop the remaining flow of undocumented migrants, Donald Trump is going to be able to claim that border crossings are down. Trump will claim it's all due to his election victory and declare that his threats to Mexico and Canada worked. Most Americans who don't follow any of this very closely will not know any better. They will just hear that Mexico and Canada are doing more and that the border is more secure. And the fact that the difference is minuscule will be irrelevant, because Donald Trump will have what he wants, a PR victory. The Trump approach is intellectually absurd. I mean, if Donald Trump promised America that temperatures are going to warm up in the spring, would Trump deserve the credit when that happens? Of course not. But when cause and effect requires some basic critical thinking skills, Trump is the master of taking advantage of Americans who do not know any better. The reality in Donald Trump's threats with Canada is that Canadian leaders are firing back, and Donald Trump is backing down. Trump is proving that his bluster is just a PR tactic, and that Canada, our neighbors to the north, see right through it. By the way, U.S. health insurance CEOs are getting bashed by Canadian businessman Kevin O'Leary, the star of Shark Tank.
So if you're an executive saying, get me more security guards, wrong answer. That's just wrong.
That is Shark Tank investor and businessman Kevin O'Leary bashing health insurance executives. In the wake of the assassination of United Health CEO Brian Thompson, many executives have refused to do anything but boost their own security.
Putting a fence around headquarters, hiring more security guards, that's all bad imagery, Wolf. It's all bad, and it's not the right answer. You got to read the room and realize right now that the public is turning against you. They are your customers, and they don't like it. Now, this poor man lost his life, horrific, but if anything good is going to come of this, it's going to be policy change, because you've basically got people lighting up their torches, just like in the Frankenstein story, and going to the castle, and they're going to burn it down.
Already in New York City, wanted posters have gone up with pictures of other health insurance executives.
They should be coming out now saying, look, we get it. We have families too. We're people. We have children. We care about what you think about, and we're going to automate this process and make it better, or do whatever they have to. that when you appeal a case, it's not a delay situation. And if you have a valid claim, you get paid out. That's what insurance is supposed to do. If you don't understand what you have to do now to get in front of this thing and say, look, it's on us. We hear you. We hear you. We hear you. And we're people too. We'll solve this problem. And here's how we're going to do it.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Liv Farrago, who writes, greed and stupidity are going to be the downfall of America. I agree. I look forward to reading your comments about Canada giving Donald Trump a final warning and exposing Trump's pathetic bluff. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us.